Extreme food budgeting videos are a thing on YouTube. It's how a lot of you found me. I had a couple series where I lived off of $20 a week for groceries, and then I did one where I did $40 a month of groceries, and I've done a few other little dollar amounts here and there, like $23 a week, $30 a week, $40 a week. I too have watched my fair share of those kinds of videos, and I think that they're entertaining, and they can be good like inspiration to give you some ideas for how to save money on groceries. But ultimately, I think that they have their problems, and it's time to address some of those. Again, I'm not condemning extreme budgeting videos for food. I do those videos on this channel from time to time, but if you're going to be watching those kinds of videos, here are a few things that you need to keep in mind. So number one is that food prices vary all over the country, all over the world. So what one person does for their budget, you cannot necessarily do for your budget. Prices for food also vary different times of the year. You know, when tomatoes are in season where you live locally, they're gonna be cheaper than when they're not in season where you live. So if you're watching a video where someone did an extreme budgeting video and it was the summertime and they were able to have like fresh tomatoes in there, if you attempt that same meal plan in the wintertime, the tomatoes are going to be a lot more expensive, and so you're going to spend more money than that vlogger did. And let's address this little COVID-19 elephant in the room. Food prices right now, for example, are a lot higher than they have been. So even if I tried to replicate meal plans that I did this exact same time last year, I probably wouldn't be able to do so for the same low price, just because the price of food in general is a lot higher right now because of what we're all going through. And that leads me to number two, and that is that not everyone has the same stores available. So me, for example, I've done a lot of my shopping in my extreme budgeting videos at Winco, and not everyone has a Winco. They're not that ubiquitous. They're not like Safeway or Walmart or Target or those stores in the US. That's US specific as well. If you're watching my videos in other countries, like you probably don't even know what I'm talking about when I say Safeway necessarily, let alone Winco. And this also extends to people, and my heart goes out to them, people who live in food deserts, places that just simply do not have grocery stores aside from maybe a 7-Eleven or another convenience store and maybe like a McDonald's and KFC, and that's like all the food they have anywhere near where they live. So I get a lot of comments on my video like, oh, well that's great, you have a Winco, but I don't have a Winco where I live, and sort of like blaming me for having a store that they don't have. I'm not taking those comments personally. I'm just saying, hey, it's a failure of just the premise of this kind of video. And also, as a viewer, you should not take these things too literally, as in, oh, I should automatically be able to replicate what this vlogger did 100%. Of course you can't. Not everyone has the same stores available. And on that note, number three, not everyone has the same what I'll call luxuries available. They're not even really necessarily luxuries. I mean, again, depending on where you're at in life or where you are in the world, these might be luxuries. Like, not everyone, for example, has a refrigerator. Not everyone has a freezer. Not everyone has a car. That's a big thing, actually. I lived without a car for almost 10 years as an adult, and it was a real struggle being able to shop for my groceries, and I couldn't buy things in bulk necessarily because I had to fit it in my backpack and walk home from the grocery store, or I had to lug it on the bus. You know, not everyone has the ability to drive to the store whenever they need their groceries, and not everyone has the ability to buy in bulk because they cannot physically lug their food all the way back home if they don't have a car. Not everyone has space in their living space to keep a lot of extra food, and you know, to save money on food, you really do need to, you know, buy giant bags of rice and things and keep them, store them somehow in your living space, and not everyone has the space to do that. Not everyone has a proper full kitchen, and I have also experienced this myself. There was a time in my life when I was living in a room that was not attached to a house, and all I had was a rice cooker, and that was all I had. So I could do a little bit of cooking, but I had a rice cooker and a mini fridge, so I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I do right now, for example. And not everyone has the luxury of having time to cook, and not everyone has the luxury of knowing how to cook a lot of this stuff. Sometimes these extreme budgeting videos, I'm gonna call myself out right here, involve a lot of making things from scratch, because you save money if you make things from scratch. But you have to take time to make those things from scratch. Time is money. If time is a limited resource for you, then it's just not practical for you. And it brings me to number 4, and that's not everyone has the same caloric needs. So this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Some of the videos that I have seen, I'm not saying all of them are like this, some of the videos that I have seen, obviously the person is not eating enough food. At least for me, you know, maybe that person is on a 1,200 calorie a day diet, but I'm on a diet right now, so I'm on a 1,600 calorie a day diet. If I were not trying to lose weight, I'd be on probably a 2,000 calorie a day diet, but not everyone is on that diet. Some people need 3,000 calories a day. Some people only need 1,200 calories a day. So if you're following a vlogger who's doing an extreme budgeting video where she only needs to eat 1,200 calories a day because she's like 4'8" and a very tiny person and doesn't exercise, but you, like maybe you're 6'5" and you exercise, so you need like 3,000 calories a day, you're gonna have to eat more than twice as much as what that vlogger is showing you in order to be full. And number 5, along the same lines of calorie requirements, not everyone has the same dietary needs or requirements. I got a lot of comments from people being like, oh, well, I can't have milk, I can't have dairy, so I can't do this plan. And it's like, well, obviously, you know, you're not going to be able to eat 100% of the things that the vlogger is preparing necessarily. There are vegans, there are ovo-lacto-vegetarians, there are omnivores, there are keto people, there are carnivores, there are gluten-free people, there are halal people, there are just people with all different kinds of restrictions. One of my friends is allergic to oranges, of all things. Very, very deathly allergic to oranges. And then, of course, people also just have dislikes. You know, some people don't like carrots. Some people don't like rice. Some people don't like eggs. So one person's grocery plan is not necessarily going to work for everyone for that reason as well. Okay, number 6, and this is going to turn into a little rant. So the first one of these videos that I did that really took off was where I lived off of $20 of groceries for a week. And I got so many comments from people being like, what you did is not realistic. Because what I did was I went shopping and I kept the receipt and I kept track of how much money I spent on the groceries that I bought. But in addition to that, I also used like rice that I already had in the pantry, other things, spices that I already had in the pantry, because I didn't want to, for the sake of a YouTube video, when I'm already poor, I don't want to, for the sake of a YouTube video, have to buy like a bunch of ingredients just for a video. And it's just really impractical, and you don't save money as much if you have to buy like exactly $20 bills worth of groceries in one shopping trip and then eat everything in that one shopping trip. But I was accused of being unrealistic because I was like drawing upon ingredients that I already had, and I was doing the math. It wasn't like, oh, I already had this rice, so I'm going to eat it, and I'm just not going to count that. It's like, no, I did the math and I figured out how much of that little portion of rice I already had cost, and I factored that into everything. So mathematically it all worked, but a lot of people didn't get that, and they were like, oh, this is just unrealistic. I say no. I think the premise of you go to the grocery store once a week with nothing more than a $20 bill in hand, I think that premise is unrealistic. I mean, what do these people think? That we just like pop into existence out of nowhere into a kitchen with nothing but a $20 bill in our hand and like nothing in the kitchen cabinets and fridge? No, that doesn't happen. That is unrealistic. So yeah, I think the entire premise of a weekly grocery budget to me is somewhat unrealistic, because most people, not everyone, but most people do not get paid weekly. They get paid monthly or once every other week, not weekly. And most other bills in your life, your rent, your car payment, your car insurance, your health insurance, your utility bills, your sewer bills, your water bills, your phone bill, your internet bill, all of those bills are once per month. And if you're doing a budget, you budget that monthly. So I feel what's a lot more realistic is monthly food budgets, and that's what I do. So a weekly food budget to me actually isn't that realistic, because again, most people don't get paid weekly. And then the entire premise of, you know, you have absolutely nothing but a $20 bill, and you don't have any food in your pantries at all. Like every single week you buy all these groceries and then you eat 100% of what you bought. There's no carryover. And then you buy a bunch of new groceries the next week and you eat 100% of all of that. There's no carryover. That is unrealistic, my friends. So I think the whole premise, if you're looking at it too literally, again, ideally this is just entertaining and it gives you some ideas, but if you look at it literally, I think the premise is just completely flawed, because it's very unrealistic for somebody to literally only have a $20 bill, absolutely no food in the house, and they have to eat 100% of what they buy with that $20 bill. Rant over. Point number 7, and again, I'm going to call myself out with this one. Some people have access to gardens, to dirt where they can grow their own food, to neighbors who grow their own food, to fruit trees growing at a local park, but not everyone has that. So again, in that $20 week video I did, that was one of my first ones to blow up, I remember I had Meyer lemons in there that I got from a friend's tree, and that was a real lifesaver. That gave me a lot of flavor. It was some free vinegar, some free acid for some of my recipes. I think I had some grapefruits too. I haven't watched that video since I made it, so I don't actually know. But yeah, I had some free ingredients from a friend. And just today, for example, I foraged a nice basket full of Rainier cherries from a neighborhood tree. In a couple weeks, when the blackberries start getting ripe, I'm going to start foraging free blackberries. Not everyone has that luxury, though. And it's kind of unfair and unrealistic, I would say, if someone in one of those weeks, like me, used free Meyer lemons from their friend's tree. But by the same token, I mean, lots of people have a friend with a fruit tree or dirt where they can grow their own food. So that's another inequality. Some of us have it, some of us don't, so it can't be universally applied to everyone. And the final problem, number 8, that I have with these extreme budgeting videos is that there's a fine line between giving people genuine tips for survival and like romanticizing being poor. And it's not my intention to romanticize being poor with my videos, and I'm not saying that it's anyone's intention to romanticize being poor, but you kind of can't help but go there since they are entertainment. And the sad reality is that for so many people, I know at the very least in the US, I was once there myself, this is real. This is not a fun challenge. This is not entertainment. This is people's lives. A lot of people are food insecure. A lot of people really do only have like $40 a month for groceries. And it just sickens me that in the richest country in the history of the world, where you have Jeff Bezos's with more billions than we can even comprehend, and Bill Gates's with more billions than they could even comprehend. And Jeff Bezos could end world hunger if he wanted to. Somebody did the math. He could do it. And he would still have a few $1 billion left over, but he's not. Where so much income inequality and wealth inequality exists, I just don't think it's humane. I don't think it's fair as a society that people who work hard, have a full-time job, are still so incredibly poor that they have to be frugal and scrimp and pinch on food, something that is a necessity. And there are so many people in this country alone, and I know in other countries all over the world, who work hard. They're not lazy. It's not a personal failing on their parts, but they simply cannot afford good food. And I'm simultaneously like happy. Happy is the wrong word. Proud, no, not proud. I guess I'll go with happy because my brain's not working very well and I'm not thinking of a good adjective to describe how I feel, but I feel happy when I see comments from people saying, oh, these videos have helped me so much. I'm on a fixed income and I don't have a lot of money for groceries, and thank you for these ideas. It's like, wow, that's terrible, and I'm so sorry you will have to go through that, those of you who are in that situation. Again, I've been there myself, and again, I don't think that anyone should be in that position, and that is just going to become more and more apparent and harder to deal with as this pandemic wears on and as food prices just keep going up. So on that sad note, those are just some things to keep in mind when you watch more of my budgeting videos or anyone else's videos. I have to say I do feel a little strange doing an extreme budgeting video at the moment, kind of for that reason, just because food prices are so much higher now. It's like if I tried to do a $20 week now, it would be so much harder than doing a $20 week before. And I like to focus a little more on just individual recipes that are inexpensive rather than me putting myself through an entire week and doing all that math. Quick reminder, if you really are one of those people that needs to save money on food right now because you are food insecure, reach out wherever you can. Try to get food stamps, try to get WIC, ask your friends and family for help. And failing all of those things, eat a lot of grains because they're very cheap and they will fill you up. I guess that's all. Bye!